Hi, I'm Matt from Bizstats. Today we're going to run through the latest improvements we've made to the Bizstats web app. So log in as usual, and I'm brought to our dashboard. I've got no reports saved in this account, so I'm going to start right away by creating a report. Now I'm going to give this report a reference name, so I'm going to call it Matt's Cafe, because our target business is a cafe. We're going to give it just some round numbers here for revenue, just for an example. And then we're going to fill in sales discretionary earnings, tangible assets, and some stock. Give it a short description. We've done that, so we can go next. Now, what we're doing is trying to determine what categories we want to search. Now, if we don't know where to start, we can use the ANZSICs system to filter through from industry, sector, category, all the way down to ANZSIC. So for instance, for a cafe, I can start in here and I can read through the industries and I can quickly boil down to what I'm looking for. So I think it's probably an accommodation and food services, and then that gives me a couple of sectors, which is probably most likely food and beverage services, categories, cafes, restaurants, and takeaway food service. I search that, I get these options. I'm going to be looking in cafes because that's what I'm appraising today. I can also add multiple different answer codes, and that will just bring all of the codes into my account, to my search, sorry. Now, this also shows you how many records that you have in each answer category. So you can see here, there's quite a lot in these categories. Today, I'm just concerned with cafes and restaurants. I can tick and untick them here. I can also remove them up here and show you the other method. So the other method that we have here is a free text search. So if I just search cafe, then I'm going to get a lot more entries because these show any ANZSIC that has a mention of cafe in it. For example, a general line grocery wholesaling, they may have the description in one record that says they supply to cafes. So that's going to show up. But if we don't know where we're looking, it's sometimes a good place to start. And again, you can see here, we get our cafe and restaurant ANZSIC code. That's over 2,000 records. Happily get a sample from that. So we're going to go next and look at our sales. Here we can see all our different sales. Again, we've got over 2,700 records in this category. So what we should do is filter down to get us somewhere a bit closer. I think revenue, we had it at 1 million. So I'm going to keep it wide, 750 to 2.5. STE, we had at 150. So I'm going to go between 100 and 250. And we've still got 255 results. So I can be quite generous here and maybe just go in the last 5 years. Now that gets us to 50 results. But as you can see, when we close this filters tab and have a look through, there's cafes, there's also restaurants. This is quite a wide and broad category. So what we can do is we can actually filter down by the description. So if I just want mentions of cafes, then I can type cafe in and it's only going to give me any records that mention a cafe in the description. So that's going to just get me closer to a comparable with my target business. Today, I'm not going to go through and give judgments on whether these are comparable. I'm just going to select a few. I can just click these categories, add them to my report. It gives you a bit of a pricing indication here and how we structure our pricing, and also the total that would be due if you purchase the selected records. You can add and delete them from both the sidebar and in here. I'm just going to add 5 records in for us here, and then I'm going to go through to our preview stage. So our preview just shows us the information we used in the previous step, but also adds in what other fields are available once we purchase our report. Now there's a few options here, the breakpoints before we purchase. So we can actually save the search, or we can download a preview of what the report's going to look like. So let's go ahead and save the search. This is useful if you are halfway through doing a search and don't want to come back and re-enter all the values. I'm going to save that search. It's going to take me back out to the dashboard, and you'll see I've still got no reports, but I do have the save search here. So you can see save search. I don't have to go back and fill in all the business details all over again. This also gets prompted for you whenever you exit a report halfway through doing it. It'll prompt you to say, do you want to save? And it'll save your progress. So we can go back in here and it'll take us back to our stat selection and give us the stats that we'd already selected, which is quite convenient. So there we are, we've got our 5, and we're going to proceed on to payment. So we click this button here, we can see our total, including our GST, and then we can go on to make a payment. This is going to take us out to a Stripe portal. You can see on the left-hand side, there's another summary of the purchase price, and then we have our details for our purchase card, and you can also add your own optional reference, which will show through. Once we click pay, it's going to take us through to our report. This is the new look for our Bizstats reports. Same as last time, you can still edit the name of your report here at any time. You can make that easier for you and your team to find. And there's also the 2 export options for PDF and Excel, which we'll come back to later. The big change in this report view is this implied value range visual, which we'll explore later once we've looked through tables being implied values, a sample, ANZSIC, and comparison. Our sample table are those 5 records that you've purchased here. And the big improvement now is that even purchased records can be excluded from your report output. So by clicking these tabs, we can exclude it from the output PDF and Excel. So it may be that you've purchased some data that was relevant, but once you've seen all of the detail, you think, I don't really want to include this, but I still want to show my client or make people aware that this sale existed. So if we look at the valuation metrics for this example, we can see how that ties into our implied value range, both visual and table. So the SDE-X and the intangibles X are the 2 multiples that we like to utilize at Bizstats. You can see for this sample, the average SDE-X is 2.19 and the average intangibles X is 1.34. If we go through to our implied values table, we can see how we've applied those. So within the SDX valuation method, we can see 2.19, that came from our sample average, and we've times that by 150k SDE, and that's given us our 328k SDEX multiple value. The same applies to the intangibles X, where we've gone 1.34 times our SDE, plus our tangibles, plus our stock, to get to our 230k value. So using these 2 multiples, we can say some of the range for the value is implied between these 2 points. We also showed that our sample average is higher in this instance, and we can see down here, our ANZSIC median is actually lower. So the thing to keep in mind is that these are adjustable, these values that we've entered at the start. So if for some reason there's a change or we want to update the value, we can do. So now you can see that the value range has changed because we've increased the SDE value that we've input. Next, we can look at the ANZSIC. The big change here is that we've shifted from mean to median. So if you're comparing to previous ANZSIC reports, you might see a difference in these fields. Just keep in mind that these are no longer the average, they are now the median values. And that's moving us in line with international best practice. So again, you can see here, our median sales price is 140k. That's showing down here on our visual. Lastly, we've got our comparison table, which shows the key implied value metrics, the average of our sample, and our median for our ANZSIC. If we had multiple ANZSICs within a single report, you get multiple lines on both this table and the ANZSIC table. Now that you've seen what we can do with our reports, we'll look at how we export. So again, the two options are Excel and PDF. Look at the Excel version of our export. You can see it very much just reflects the 4 tables that we have in the report in the web app. The only difference that you'll notice here is that we've included the description field in this download, so you don't have to go back and compare to the search function. As for PDF, we've also improved this. We've made it a report that you can build out, and you can select or deselect depending on what suits your purposes. In this instance, we're going to select all the pages and we're going to build this report. Report gives a cover page, Bizstats logo, the title that you use to name the report and the date that you printed it, gives an implied value range and gives that visual and a bit of a description of what it is, and then the data, the same for sample value, ANZSIC median, and our comparison. And then we've also included this glossary, which helps with defining the terms that we use in Bizstats for people who aren't familiar. And lastly, we include our standard disclaimer. So that's it for the report and how to export. If we go back to our dashboard, you can see we've now got our cafe report here in the dashboard. We've got an invoice that we can also download. And lastly, we've still got our contact here. If you need to message us about any issues you're having, want some help, then feel free to do. That's it for this update to the Bizstats web app. Hopefully these changes help you to make better use of Bizstats data, and thanks again for your support.